The ATH-R70x is Audio-Technica's first full-sized open-backed headphone for professional studio monitoring. Now, I've tried a number of Audio-Technica open-backed headphones in the past, including the AD-1000X and the AD-2000, and they've all been voiced for really beautiful, airy female vocal delivery, but they weren't exactly neutral. So what's really interesting about the R70x is the question of whether it retains that kind of classic Audio-Technica house sound or it departs from it completely in an effort to deliver something that's appropriate for studio monitoring. Let's find out. The review units on this channel are purchased at retail and not provided by manufacturers. Join the viewers supporting this channel and get access to an exclusive weekly mini podcast by heading on over to patreon.com/LachlanLikesAthing. And thanks. Hey everyone, and welcome to Lachlan Likes a Thing, the show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Now today we're looking at the ATH-R70x, which the Japanese company Audio-Technica released alongside the ATH-M70x monitoring headphone earlier this year. Now this headphone is currently priced at around $349 on Amazon US, and I bought it for 479 Australian dollars from Minidisc. The R70x was developed in conjunction with the French design agency Aro Studio. The collaboration has resulted in what I think is a gorgeously industrial look and an astoundingly light weight of 210 grams. The R70x is so light it almost feels insubstantial, but the metals and plastics used in the design inspire confidence. The R70x has a dual-sided detachable 3-meter cable that feels tough without being stiff. Audio-Technica's 3D wing headband system has seen some modifications in the new design with a single metal band for tension. I think the new headband design deserves a special kind of note because not everyone is a fan of Audio-Technica's 3D wing system. Now this is an automatic adjustment mechanism that's usually quite comfortable, but sometimes on past models you would get the feeling that the headphones were sliding down your face because there wasn't enough tension in the 3D wings keeping it on top of your head. Now thankfully that's been much improved with the R70x. Because of the new ovoid headband shape, there's increased clamping pressure on the side of your face, so there's more of a sense of friction to prevent the headphone from sliding down, and the actual 3D wings themselves have increased tension in the springs. It actually is one of the most comfortable headphones that I've tried, alongside my favorites like the AKG K712 and the Beyerdynamic DT880. Unfortunately, it's still not as comfortable as my favorite headphone in this category, the Sony MA900, which I still regard as a dream on your ears, but I've resigned myself to the fact that no one is ever going to manufacture a headphone as comfortable as the MA900 again. Before I talk about how the R70x sounds, it's important to be aware that the R70x is a headphone with 470 ohms of impedance and 98 decibels of sensitivity, which I thought was a misprint on the box when I first saw it, because usually Audio-Technica headphones have much lower impedance figures. Now what that means is that this is a headphone that I would recommend you use with a dedicated headphone amplifier. You can get a listenable volume out of portable sources or just kind of normal headphone outs from your devices, but I can't guarantee that you won't end up getting increased distortion or clipping if you really push the amplifier on your equipment. So that's something that you should factor in if you're thinking of buying a pair of these. So how does the R70x sound? Well, I'll put it this way. The R70x is my new reference for neutrality in a headphone. I think the R70x is a tremendously well-balanced, very natural, really nice sounding headphone. And in terms of signature, it's actually just about smack bang in the middle of all the other headphones that I've tried. So it's very balanced, I think, in terms of the bass and the mids. There's a nice equal proportion between those parts of the sound signature. In terms of treble, it's maybe just slightly rolled off, just a bit, to keep it from ever sounding aggressive or harsh. But overall, it's definitely a headphone that I think of as a very middle ground, all-rounder sort of sound signature, and I think it sounds great. It also sounds extremely clean. There's a great amount of detail and layering, and I just really enjoy listening to it. So the closest headphone I have in terms of signature to the R70X is the Sony MA900. Now both of these are slightly warm sounding, a bit more mellow and relaxed in terms of signature. But I think the R70X actually improves on a lot of the areas the MA900 has problems with. Particularly in terms of bass, the R70X is much more kind of defined and solid. It's not necessarily a great deal more bass than the MA900, but it rolls off less in the very lowest frequency, so everything sounds a bit more solid and cohesive. In terms of treble, the R70X is also a little cleaner and more defined, so you get a better sense of detail. The mids are interesting. The mids are a tiny bit more forward on the MA900, and as a result, the MA900 can sound a little nasal at times, but it can sound a little more lively with female vocals. The R70X is a little bit more subdued, but overall, they actually sound quite similar. And if you love the MA900, like I do, you'll find a lot to love in the R70X. It's not quite as comfortable, but I think it is a kind of logical step up from the MA900. So it's been really difficult comparing the R70X to my other favorite full-sized open-backed headphone, the AKG K712. Now, I think of both of these headphones as very balanced, natural sounding listens, and I really like both of these headphones. If the R70X was a little darker than neutral, then the K712 I would consider a little brighter than neutral. Because, and especially in the mids and the treble, particularly in female vocals and that kind of area, the K712 is just a bit more forward, it's brighter, and as a result, when you listen to it, it sounds immediately more detailed and layered. Also, I would say the bass on the K712 just sounds a bit more defined, just a bit more visceral. So I would say in terms of overall technical performance, the K712 is better than the R70X. It just edges it out in terms of the technicalities. However, I do find for long periods of listening with many genres of music, I find the R70X is the more relaxing and the more natural listen. That isn't to say that the K712 isn't an amazing all-rounder or that it's a fatiguing sounding headphone. It isn't either of those things. I just find the R70X is just a little bit more easy on the ears. So it really depends on your priorities. Again, I really like both of these headphones, so it's very hard for me to choose. Now the funny thing is the R70X is the least Audio-Technica sounding Audio-Technica headphone that I've ever heard, in that it doesn't really have that characteristic emphasis on female vocals, and even the K712 sounds more like an Audio-Technica headphone than the R70X. Over at my blog, I've posted a written comparison of the R70X with the Audio-Technica AD-1000X, and you can check out a link to that in the description of this video. But long story short, as much as I think this is a great headphone from Audio-Technica, it's really not going to attract the same fans who are used to Audio-Technica's kind of really beautiful forward female vocals. This is a completely different kind of beast entirely. What's also quite funny is that I've now reviewed several monitor headphones from Audio-Technica, including the M70X and the M50X. And even though these are all built as professional studio monitors, they all sound completely different. The M70X is a lot more treble forward and aggressive than the R70X, and the M50X is much bassier than both of these headphones. So I actually don't know if Audio-Technica can't decide what is an appropriate kind of sound signature for studio monitoring, or they're just having a kind of diverse range of signatures for different applications, depending on whether you're trying to monitor vocals or electronic music or that kind of thing. What I can tell you is that I think Audio-Technica has been on a roll with their recent releases, at least in terms of sound quality, and the R70X is definitely one of my favorite Audio-Technica headphones so far. And it's definitely one of my favorite full-sized headphones, alongside the AKG K712, the Shure SRH1540, and the Bava Dynamic DT770. And that means that One of my favorite Audio-Technica headphones is a headphone that sounds the least like an Audio-Technica headphone, and as a fan of the company, I don't really know what to make of that. Anyway, I do recommend you try this headphone out if you get a chance, and also make sure that your equipment can actually drive this headphone. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, and thank you once again to everyone who helps support the channel. In the video description, you'll find links to my Twitter, my Facebook, and my Patreon, and happy listening.